Men in your 20s, avoid getting a girlfriend unless you meet a unicorn that alters your life.
Quickly, as a fine babe in Christ, why settle when it comes to men?
3 huge red flags to look out for on girls you never want to date.
Because I know some of you women out here have been making these men so spoiled.
Well, here we are. 63% of men and 34% of women in the US between the ages of 18 to 29 report being single. Roughly 6 in 10 single adults say they are not looking for a relationship or dates, and an estimated 1 in 3 young adults living today will never get married. If you're in your teens or even your 30s, it probably seems obvious to you why this is the case. As women now collect nearly 60% of bachelor's degrees and the income gap narrows, they can support themselves much easier and have the opportunity to be more selective with the potential partners they choose. On top of that, dating apps, which are now the most common way young people find relationships, leave little room for anyone who doesn't know how to optimize their profile, even if they're attractive and confident in real life. And of course, a lot more of our time is now spent alone, which lowers the chances of us meeting someone we genuinely connect with. But those aren't the aspects I want to focus on today. Today, I want to talk about this underlying fear of being intimate that I've observed amongst a lot of Gen Z. Based on the general feelings of both the people I've talked to in real life and online, it's clear to me that Gen Z is terrified of getting close to someone and therefore potentially getting hurt. So let's explore where that fear came from and how it's affecting everybody's ability to find a partner, because it might just be the most important factor we need to consider if we want to repair this worsening dating crisis. There are 2 archetypes we need to create and dissect if we want to get to the bottom of this: the irrationally fearful and the rationally fearful. The person who is irrationally fearful of dating has never been in a serious relationship before. They may have given their fair share of attempts in the dating scene and gotten close to an official relationship, but due to their infrequent, unsuccessful experiences, they've decided that pursuing this any further is too risky or not worth it. Conversely, the rationally fearful has a concrete reason for fearing intimacy. They've been in relationships in the past, opened up, and gotten their heart broken, whether that was through getting dumped, cheated on, or abused. Now, obviously, both of these archetypes exist to varying degrees in real life. You probably identify with one of the 2, or maybe even both of them. But what's really changed are the narratives being fed to them and how that affects their ability to develop and find a relationship in the future. In the past, when either archetype was scared to put themselves out there and find a potential partner, one of 2 approaches would happen. The first, and probably more common, was that eventually they'd get peer pressured enough to do it even if they weren't really ready yet. Someone close to them, whether a friend or family member, would either force them to find a good partner or teach them how to maturely move through their fears and stop being so scared of whatever gender they were attracted to. Now, did this approach lead to a lot of poor marriages that probably should have never happened? Yes. When it was more socially taboo to not be married by the time you reached your 30s, such as the baby boomer era, the divorce rates in America reached an all-time high. And from this perspective, the fact that there's less of a taboo around forcing yourself to be with someone who you might find out later is manipulative or abusive is a net positive. And this is one of the things that is actually good about the modern dating scene, is that people are really waiting to find the right person and to make sure they're mature enough to get into a relationship, to be able to work through it, and to get to the point where maybe they get married. And I think that's part of the reason why we're now seeing some of the lowest divorce rates we ever have. But still, even through that inherently broken approach, a lot of people found their person, a person they never would have found had they been given the opportunity to stay scared forever. And that's not me justifying the peer pressure approach. It's me stating the rare, unlikely outcome of it sometimes working, because it will be relevant later in the video. The second approach one of the archetypes might have used was how they saw relationships play out around them in real life. Depending on how ideal those examples were and what the people closest to them that they trusted told them about how to find a relationship and treat their partner, they changed their beliefs about relationships and, as a result, changed themselves. And this led to many of them pursuing and creating a relationship they might not have otherwise. This approach also produced mixed results. If they grew up watching their parents in a really terrible relationship, or they just had friends who could get into relationships but treated their partners like trash and that gave them bad advice, then they could have found themselves in shitty relationships sometimes. But again, pushing through those initial fears that every young person has when it comes to relationships, I believe was more common due to this approach. So in other words, no matter what approach was acted upon by the two archetypes, the driving influences almost always came from someone in real life who was already in a relationship. Those were the narratives they followed. Now, let's contrast that with today's youth. What each archetype is being fed is the same idea, but how it influences their pursuit of future relationships and their mindset toward relationships is slightly different. And it begins with a single concept: the projection bubble augmentation. Sorry, I know you're probably thinking, what the hell does that even mean? And to that I say, I just wanted to make it sound mysterious and cool so you would feel compelled to keep listening. It will make more sense soon. But first I want to talk about today's sponsor, David. I usually find it very hard to stay in a caloric deficit while still trying to maintain or build muscle because I need to keep my protein intake high. And as someone who takes their fitness seriously, this is a problem. I could just eat pounds of beef or chicken, but when I eat those, I'm usually having a full meal, and the calories in that meal can add up quickly. But David allows me to get rid of this problem. They have the highest protein to calorie ratio on the market. It's 150 calories and 28 grams of protein, which is absolutely unheard of in a protein bar. With those macros, I expected it to taste like pure protein chalk, but the blueberry pie one is actually really tasty and masks the taste of protein well. And they just came out with a new cinnamon roll flavor, which I destroyed faster than I would have liked to. If you're someone trying to lose weight and keep the calories down, but keep the protein up, and you just want a quick, easy way to get that protein in, I think you should definitely give David a shot. You can get a free carton when you order 4 or more by clicking the link in my description box or scanning that QR code that you see on screen right now. So give it a shot. Let me ask you this. What demographic is the most likely to create content centered around dating advice? And what demographic's dating advice is the most likely to get heard by the greatest amount of people? Well, unlike in the past, where the answer to that question usually was people who are already married or in relationships, the biggest influencers now are the influencers. And these influencers online usually have little to no dating experience, really terrible dating advice, or both.
A lot of you ask me how you can become more mysterious, so here's how. The easiest thing to do is to reduce exposure so she doesn't see you all the time. It's even better if you just had an amazing date and then you disappear for a while until she messages you.
The question you might be wondering is why? Why is it that the low quality content from inexperienced influencers that only makes you more fearful and untrustworthy of the people you're attracted to is the content that is most popular? This is where the concept of projection bubbles augmenting comes into play. You see, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, all of us are committing confirmation bias every day of our lives. This is when we subconsciously seek out information that favors our pre-existing beliefs or values while downplaying or dismissing any contradictory information. For example, let's say archetype 1 tries to ask a girl out and they get rejected. And because they don't have any positive role models in their life, that rejection forms the belief in their head that something is wrong with them and they are not worthy of being loved. Due to this, they might turn to social media and search, "Why do I keep getting rejected?" And guess what the first video they decide to click on tells them? Unless you're in the top 1% of men, you're gonna get rejected and she's not gonna respect you. It could have been the case that within this video, there might have been some genuinely good advice, like taking care of yourself shows other people that you have respect for yourself and take life seriously, which makes you more desirable, but Archetype 1 let that advice slip in one ear and out the other. Instead, they only focused on the words that confirmed how that rejection made them feel about themselves. It confirmed that they're not good enough to find a relationship. Now let's go over an example with Archetype 2. Maybe Archetype 2, after getting cheated on, goes to social media to try to find out why they got cheated on or how to get over it. The advice they listen to? You are what you attract. If you got cheated on, it's because you're not at the point in life yet where you can attract someone who doesn't cheat on you. AKA, you're not good enough. Or maybe they'll just rifle through stories of other people getting cheated on, further confirming their bias that most people aren't trustworthy. And as many of you already know, there are cheating stories aplenty on social media. Not only are we biased to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, but humans also tend to have a bias toward negative information. So when a cheating gets posted, 9 times out of 10, more people are going to engage with it over a post of a happy couple, therefore forcing it into even more people's algorithm. platforms. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because it turns out that the influencers peddling this garbage advice hold the same beliefs as one of the two archetypes, which is why they make content centered around this advice. In other words, they're just as fearful of intimacy as their consumers. So this is the projection bubble augmentation. Young, good-looking people projecting their own struggles they've had in dating are the ones making the most amount of low-quality relationship advice on the internet, which the archetypes flock to since it confirms their pre-existing projections. And through this, both the creator and the consumers reinforce each other's behaviors through their engagement. When creators see that this type of content does well, they are more likely to make that content in the future, especially if there's tons of comments in those videos from the archetypes encouraging them that they're right, and that the same thing has happened to them. It's a symbiotic relationship where the creator doesn't know how to heal, but has confirmation from the archetypes that they should keep posting this low quality content and therefore not heal, which then leads the archetypes to not heal too and become ever more fearful of relationships. This bubble augments and augments until eventually it even starts reaching people teetering on the outskirts of the archetype. The ones who still have hope but need more guidance on how to improve. You might be able to relate to being on the outskirts here. Have you ever had trouble in a relationship and you initially thought that something must be wrong with you and you just need to improve and you hadn't yet given up on relationships? Maybe you thought to yourself, I know there's someone out there for me. I just need to keep going. But then you heard enough advice about how you need to have your whole life together before you start dating, or a bunch of horror stories about people getting abused and cheated on, and you became extremely averse to any sort of closeness between you and someone else. That's how dangerous these bubbles can be. Perhaps one of the most vivid examples of how dangerous this can be is seen in YouTuber The Wizard Liz. Liz is known for her content about building confidence, manifestation, and attracting your dream life, which has grown her channel to over 8 million subscribers. But she also occasionally makes advice for women, specifically on how to attract a rich man who spoils you.
Also, if you have a man that's constantly showing off how much wealth he has to you or how much he has, ask him to transfer it to you.
I kind of consider this content like the red pill, but for women. They share a lot of the same internal values, like dating multiple people at once, trying to seem mysterious and get the person you're attracted to be competitive and try to work for you, but the end result is just slightly different. However, that's not even what I want to focus on as it pertains to this video. What I want to focus on is her recent marriage scandal. If you don't know about this, Liz was on a layover in Athens, and a former Fortnite content creator by the name of Landon MC forgot his bag where Liz was sitting, somehow in the same airport in Athens. If that coincidence wasn't weird enough, they ended up exchanging contact information. Then Landon goes on to tell her he feels like he manifested her, and within 36 hours of knowing her, tells her he loves her and he knows that he's going to marry her.
Who said I love you first?
Oh my god, I told this creature, what's a creature?
Creature. This thing over here.
I told this woman that I loved her within 36 hours of knowing her.
First off, if Liz, who presents herself as this relationship expert, couldn't see the issues within all of that, then what does that say about the validity of her advice? But it gets worse. Within a year of them being married, Landon admits to have cheated on her after he already got her pregnant, and they end up getting divorced. Yeah, the whole story is pretty damn crazy. And the last video she posted is a Q&A with him where they're both giving some incredibly ironic advice.
It's not a good partnership if the person is going to choose someone else over you. That defeats the whole point. But forgiveness is a big thing. So if you have ever had a trust issue come up, you got to learn how to forgive and work through that. Otherwise, that'll just turn into crippling insecurity that you suffer with.
Depends what the trust issue was.
Now, I'm not bringing this up to say it's Liz's fault she got cheated on. Of course it's not. But if you claim to have the amount of relationship knowledge you do, knowledge that gets pushed out to millions of people, and the way that Landon was moving didn't raise your eyebrows, I'm not sure I can consider you qualified to give this type of advice. And yet, these types of people are the exact types of people that many young people are now listening to and taking in their word as gospel. The way her audience responded to this is extremely telling of the relationship they had with the Wizard Liz and with themselves. You give an ugly guy a chance, he thinks he rules the world. Billie Eilish. You made him special, Liz. Now he's nothing but an average guy. Some people want to be close to you, to copy your magic. Liz. Notice how she is looking at him lovingly, and he is looking at the camera / himself. Basically, none of the top comments are criticizing Liz on her choice to say yes to a guy who said he loves her 36 hours after meeting her. They idolize Liz. And since they idolize her, this creates another dangerous outcome when influencers go through heartbreak. The idolizers and archetype followers start to think, if this person can't find love, then there's absolutely no chance I will, and all of this gender is disgusting.
My fucking god, I'm literally shaking. Like, fuck men at this point. Literally fuck men. Men literally have no boundaries.
Really, this is just another deceptive way for these types of people to live in fear of being in a relationship. There's this really good take from the creator Katrina Liu, who explains this concept well in her video about Liz.
People are idolizing Liz and saying things like, oh my god, she's such a goddess, she seems to have it all, so if a woman like her gets cheated on, it means that I'm probably doomed, that I've lost hope in love, and men will never be loyal to me. Here is the thing, idolization is an ego trick. It is a way we try to soothe our own fear, our own imperfections, by placing someone else on a pedestal. Because if they seem too perfect, then you would think that perfection is possible. If they fall, then we get to give up too. But that is not growth, that is escapism.
Basically, Liz's failed relationship was the perfect confirmation bias that archetypes 1 and 2 used to fuel their already low self-worth. They convinced themselves that because these people have had some success with dating or share a relatable trauma from their past and carry themselves with such confidence, they must be the version of themselves they could become if only they were as smart or self-assured as they are. What really happened here isn't that the idolizers are mourning Liz's relationship. They are mourning their own hope and turning someone else's failure into evidence that they should stop trying in order to protect themselves. This sort of idolization and personableness with influencers and our ability to see all the goings-on of so many relationships online of random people is not something that has ever existed at the scale it does now. Now we're microanalyzing anything someone does and comparing it to what that influencer tells us and interpreting it as a red flag, when really it might just be some natural flaw every human has. We're promoting reality TV shows where a bunch of people are just flipping through options and treating other humans as replaceable objects in order to find a partner. We're saying, I'm working on myself, when really that's just a cover-up for the debilitating loneliness we feel. We're told to protect our peace, when really we're desperate for attention but afraid of what happens when someone gets too close again. And we deliberately listen to the red pill guru's advice about never being too needy, staying silent, and choosing emotionally unavailable people over the grounded relationship advice of a married person as a way to mask our fear of intimacy. It's projections, reinforcing projections, reinforcing projections. And anyone who has been even minimally hurt and hasn't been taught how to properly heal is absolutely terrified of becoming the next relationship horror story. And I get it, trust me, I've been there. I've had people do things to me that would have made more sense in a dramatic romance novel than in real life. Things I could have never fathomed. It's so easy to escape that pain through confirming stories online about how men or women are naturally unloyal and manipulative, or to push anyone away in the future that gets close to you, or to give up on the idea of relationships completely. But you have to understand that the healing you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. So what does the proper healing look like? And how do you escape the trap of falling into a projection bubble augmentation? Well, firstly, and most obviously, you should always be skeptical of a young person giving relationship advice on the internet who doesn't have a successful relationship track record. And I swear that's not me. I swear I have 10 years of relationship experience, and now I'm married, but you can still be a little skeptical of my advice, of course. If you find yourself watching this type of content, ask yourself, why am I so attracted to this type of content? Do I really believe what this person is saying, or do I want to believe it because it confirms my pre-existing beliefs? The next thing, which is the most crucial to understand, is that your mind is purposefully distorting your reality in order to keep you safe from a non-existent threat. When an intense negative experience, like getting rejected enough times, getting cheated on, abused, or manipulated happens, and we don't yet possess the ability to process that moment and heal from it, or the experience is just too overwhelming for our mind and body to find any practical escape, that experience likely turns into trauma and gets stored in our body. And if that experience leaves behind a deep imprint of trauma, then almost any time you are reminded of the awful relationship experience, or you're in some sort of environment that feels like that experience, your nervous system will go into fight, flight, or fawn mode. Common physiological sensations of this include a racing heart, dilated pupils, sweaty palms, and fast, shallow breathing. In other words, your body is reliving the threat from the past that isn't even there anymore. And when you need a sort of escape from those feelings, you will unconsciously search for proof. Proof that you have a right to be afraid, which usually comes in the form of online anecdotes from other influencers projecting their traumas onto their audiences. But those responses, while completely understandable, don't have to define you forever. Healing begins when you notice those reactions showing up and gently interrupting them. And that means doing the thing that you've been avoiding all along. Opening yourself up to intimacy by getting vulnerable once again. Just start with something small. That might mean opening up slightly more in a conversation and seeing that it goes well, or noticing when you want to pull away from someone kind and staying present just a little longer. When you start to get a bit more comfortable with those small risks and you build that proof because people are responding positively to those actions, this sends a message to your mind and body that trust can be rebuilt. Now, that's not to say you should force yourself into being vulnerable with just anybody, but when the right people come along, you can learn to meet them and open up to them without carrying every wound from the past into the room. And slowly, if you do this enough, your internal world will start to shift. You'll realize that being vulnerable doesn't have to be terrifying. It will put you at risk of being judged or ridiculed or rejected, yes, that's an inescapable fact. But you'll be willing to take those risks again with confidence, knowing that you can handle the price you pay, which is unavoidable, for finding true, lasting relationships that deepen over time. Never take the words of any influencer's relationship advice or any story you see online of someone getting hurt in a relationship as proof that you should give up completely. That's the unavoidable risk of opening yourself up to finding love. Relationships can and will get very messy, especially at the start when you haven't yet learned all the differences between you and your partner's beliefs and lifestyles. But do not panic here. Do not label every single difference as a red flag. If these differences are true to who the person is, and you know you'd still love them for it, or you can communicate through that difference and express how it makes you feel and how you can work through it, then you've found someone truly special. What I fear most is that more and more young people will lose this ability to work through the inevitable differences or disagreements as they continue to live in fear of the risks that come with intimacy. And if that is you, you need to understand this. You are not broken. Your body is just working the way it's designed to seek out information that confirms what you think you already know and keep you safe. But you can tinker that design to become more resilient to rejection and heartbreak, and more confident in yourself, despite the inevitable pains that will come from experiencing life to its fullest without fear. And it starts when you stop thinking all the solutions to those problems are going to come from a random 25-year-old online who was in one serious relationship for a few months. Would love to hear your thoughts about this video or how you've worked through past relationship traumas or experiences in the comments, because I'm no expert or no guru. I could use some help as well. And if you like these sort of video essay videos where I talk about modern issues and usually give a solution, how we can fix things, make things better at the end of those videos, then you can check out this playlist right here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.